Hello, everybody. Welcome to the TechRaptor podcast. I'm Robert Scarpanito, your features editor.
Andrew Rutten, editor-in-chief.
Robert Jogget, site founder.
Andrew Stretch, Creative Commons editor.
Creative Commons editor. Thank you so much for bringing OGL 1.0A back into the realm. It's all you. You're the only one responsible for this. So thank you.
I know. Well, I mean, not like any of you guys play any board games. You wouldn't know a meeple from a token, let's be honest.
Hey, that's bullshit and you know it. Meeples aren't real.
No, I've got a giant box of meeples right under my desk.
Is it next to the console bag?
No, the console bag's in the closet of shame with my Stadia controller.
What else is in the closet of shame?
Closet of shame. The 3D printer that's print bed is not working correctly. So that's frustrating me.
Very shameful.
Printer that has a very small ink cartridge, and I always have to go out and buy refills. So that's in there. My Dignity's in there as well. That takes up a lot of space, though.
A lot. Of space.
I mean, you didn't have much to give away. I mean, the store. So.
Okay, I'll admit it's a small closet.
and actually, how much of that Dignity is in Phil Spencer's closet?
Oh, I don't know what you're talking about. Those photos were not real. Everything the press is saying is a lie.
The Dignity he collects are stored in vats anyway.
Yeah,
in a massive warehouse.
It's true. And there's 120 million monthly active users in that vat, from what I hear. Yes,
it's just a giant Xbox fridge.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just an old Xbox One case. That's all.
He hollowed it out and just put the souls in.
Exactly.
That's what gives it the green glow.
We can watch NFL in there.
By the water cooler. Speaking of Xbox did have a big event last week. We're not going to dive too deep into it in this episode, but you can check out our YouTube channel. We're Stretch, along with our social media editor, Christian, together just watched it, reacted to it, discussed it a bit. So if you want to check that out for some of our deeper thoughts into that show, go over to YouTube. But for now, let's dive into some news. Like we alluded to earlier, Wizards of the Coast, if you've been listening to this podcast or just on Twitter for the last 2-3 weeks, they tried to reclaim their financial stake in Dungeons and Dragons. First by kicking down the door and then being like, oh, actually, we're going to knock on the door. And now they've ran away from the door because they have gotten away from any OGL 1.1 ideas and have just fully rolled back to OGL 1.0A, which is the original that's been around for 20 years. So any licensing is just, all of this debacle and fluff was kind of nothing.
Yeah, they could have just avoided all of it. They just did nothing.
It's been a fucking ride for tabletop Twitter. Just watching people go absolutely crazy about everything for a lot of good reason, of course. But for it to end, not just in the same place that it started, but Wizards of the Coast has also committed to putting the entire SRD, which is the resource document guideline that goes over the basic rules of Dungeons and Dragons. That's now in the Creative Commons, the entirety of it. So now kind of even for people who are skeptical of how much can they get away with the OGL, knowing that the SRD is in the Creative Commons now is Wizards can't change anything, and even if they wanted to at this point, over the course of this all, it did also bring up some very interesting comments as more and more tabletop IP lawyers got involved in stuff. Kind of looking at the OGL and being well, the OGL really only is intended for if you plan to reference portions or whole parts of the SRD in your 5th edition published content. So as someone making a book of locations and saying that these are 5e compatible locations, that doesn't need the SRD anyway. There's absolutely nothing that the Wizards of the Coast could or could ever do to say anything about it. So, not only did it bring to light, how many people were like really counting on the OGL, how an OGL 1.1 would have been horrendous. 1.2 was getting better, but still had some finicky stuff. And now they've just rolled it back. It might not have been that what people were getting upset about would have even been valid. That would have taken like a lawsuit to really shake out in the wash. So who knows whether anyone would have actually wanted to have taken on that fight to test the limits of how far the OGL actually covers. But at this point, it doesn't matter. Creators can continue creating. I've seen so many of the fantastic creators that I have chatted with in the past, or I've covered some of their books and stuff, talking about how this is a great thing. This is a fantastic move for Wizards of the Coast. I commented in my news piece of it. It'll be interesting to see what kind of that deeper community reaction is. Because we'll see those who continue to say, well, they tried to fuck with us once. We'll see if they try to fuck with us again, even though they legally cannot at this point.
Well, next they'll wage a war on Creative Commons itself. All Creative Commons.
I mean, they still want to
uncommon.
make money somehow, so they're going to do something.
Yeah.
It's also interesting too. Throughout this, there were reports that Hasbro was pushing this more so than Wizards of the Coast.
Mhm.
And 2 days ago, Hasbro dropped their Q4 revenue numbers, and they were down 17%.
Mm.
So
Yeah, I
I'm
know,
sure
like-
that was a driving factor behind why they were pushing for this.
Yeah, it does
Yeah.
feel very like corporately motivated, right?
Mhm.
Compared to the
100%.
usual like tabletop is very community driven,
Mhm. And I mean, like, yeah, as I've said in previous podcast episodes, to not entirely play devil's advocate, but like, it makes sense that if there's a company out here, making $1 million based on someone else's IP, that the IP holders would like to get a slice of that pie. That's just business. We've said it before that like developers are not your friends; they are a business. I joke about how Phil and I are besties, or how I'm a shill for Xbox, whatever. I know Xbox is just out to get the numbers of my credit card,
Mhm.
and that's totally fine.
It's really smart that Phil says this every once in a while.
Yeah.
He's a pretty smart guy.
Mhm.
I just got a text from him saying, "Hey bestie, can you please do this?
Yeah.
Your next
People are
paycheck
getting
is in the
onto us.
mail."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Bold of him to send the paycheck before you confirm you do it, though. That he must trust you a
he's
lot.
pretty.
I'm a good boy.
Yeah.
He knows you'll do
He
anything he
knows.
says.
Yeah.
He knows. There's no concern there.
And with all this Wizard of the Coast stuff, there is still a concern that I have about, that there will be no way for them to add a clause about hateful content or hateful material. The horrendous stuff with the TSR test of having a specifically dumb slave race that they likened to African Americans, or way back in the past in like 2002, there was a book that was released that was all extremely sexually explicit.
Mm.
I'm all for sex positivity. This was not sex positive.
Mm.
And so there was a fight for them to get that taken down as well. So
Yeah.
it does mean that there isn't that protection to continue to make it wholesome, or at least not absolutely vile and filth ridden. But here we're at. There's nothing that they can do to change it at this point. So we'll see what happens.
But couldn't you also argue that there are other ways to get at those kind of more negative types of content that wouldn't mess everything up for the smaller content creators that are actually making good things, right? Because I think changing the OGL like wholesale like that wasn't a great idea, at least not for the smaller content creators. So I don't know. I think I hope that this puts Wizards in a place where they can think of new solutions to get at those kind of like racist, misogynist, all sorts of phobics types of content out there. Or maybe even the solution is just do what you can to not draw attention to it.
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think of all of the changes, this is the only thing that I think I'm, you know, disappointed that is not going through.
Mm.
Um, but the people demanded 1.0A and the people got 1.0A.
So
Yeah.
the question on everyone's mind, and I think we've all been worrying about this, does this mean Matt Mercer still has a job? Is he okay?
His
Is he safe?
none of
Yeah.
none of
And
the
he's got a
OGL
budding voice
changes,
acting career.
Yeah, very
none
early
of the
stages.
OGL changes even affected live play shows.
Mm.
Um, and I mean, let's not even assume. Let's not. I don't know what I'm trying to say here. I think that anyone working on the assumption that Critical Role does not already have some kind of special licensing deal with Wizards of the Coast is absolutely fooling
Yeah,
themselves.
they have
Yeah,
official books from
yeah,
like
Wait,
exactly.
yeah,
Like
they have
you need
published
an
official
OGL for
Wizards
that.
of the Coast books. They have self-published. They are one of D&D Beyond's biggest reppers through a sponsorship deal. Um,
yeah.
there's no way that they are using the same thing that all of the common content creators are using.
Right.
Yeah.
What I think is interesting coming out of this whole saga, though, is that now Wizards of the Coast is rolling everything back. Everything is as it was, but Paizo, the folks behind Pathfinder, during this whole debacle, they announced that they're doing their open gaming something
The
ORC.
or the orc, right?
Mhm.
They announced that they were doing that to kind of be an alternative to what at the time was going to be OGL 1.1, 1.2. Now that we're back to OGL 1.0A, Paizo's still pretty committed to bringing their orc to life. So now they're going to be
I think it's
competing
still a smart
licensing.
play
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
terms of basically, yeah, everything goes back to kind of the way it was, but Paizo doing this basically says like you won't see this behavior from us specifically. And so
Mhm.
they kind of
Also,
set the stage to say like, hey, we're serious about letting creators do what they want. And clearly it worked because they sold 6 months of stock in 2 weeks throughout this entire debacle. So, I think Paizo's been one of the companies that every time Wizards trips up, they benefit because they're quick to jump on
Mhm.
whatever it is that the community would prefer.
and I mean, competition is always good. You want that competition so that it's no longer that Wizards is the only one with an Orc OGL equivalent, and that if they want the people, then they're going to have to make their deal more appealing. That even the presence of the Orc, even if it is pretty on par with where the OGL is at the moment, um, that's gonna keep both of them, in check with one another, which is only going to benefit the greater TTRPG community.
Yeah, because I feel like if there's anything that can give D&D a run for its money, just in terms of like mainstream awareness, like people know the name, I feel like Pathfinder is pretty high on that list. I mean, because it's basically D&D
Yeah.
3.5.2.
which is, it makes it even crazier that the one of the big driving forces for popularity in the TTRPG space and in Dungeons and Dragons is Critical Role, which started as a Pathfinder game that then when they took it to live stream, they made the decision, oh well, D&D is more popular, so
Mhm.
we'll swap systems to that.
Right. So I don't know. We'll see. Like maybe in a year's time, maybe then Paizo will have its orc out. We don't really have a timeline of when that's going to be done,
Mhm.
but I'd be very curious to see how does the orc and OGL 1.0A stack up to each other, and like what the better deal will be for creators out there.
And all of this OGL stuff has definitely not shifted any pipeline at all for Wizards of the Coast. That they dropped details without announcing to anyone about the next anthology book, which is going to be a heist anthology, which I think is particularly funny.
Mm,
um, but yeah, so like everything's still churning ahead. None of this OGL shakeup has delayed content coming out or anything, you know. So the world continues to revolve, and it's just going to be a black January for or dark January for tabletop.
Yeah. But you know what did get delayed? A little known possible video game / vaporware called the day before, or maybe the game formerly known as the day before, because this little game, it's kind of like a survival crafting type of thing. I think, right, you know way more about it because you've been following this pipe dream since last January. But
yeah,
it's been delayed.
I mean, this is
again.
one that's been on my radar a while. It's got a pretty big following. I think well over 100,000 followers on Steam, which is substantial pre-release. I mean, most games that release, I would say, are typically between the 5,000 and 10,000 followers that do well on Steam. And so for them to have well over 100,000 is substantial. It means there's a significant amount of people interested in it. But I think it's been delayed 2 or 3 times since last January. This one's probably the bigger profile one because they had a specific release date in mind for March. Previously, it was just like this month, and was kind of kicked down the curb. But this time it was like a specific date that they had announced. And then this happened where someone grabbed the trademark before them. They're saying.
Allegedly.
A little weird.
Yeah. They pushed it back because of a trademark, but this is also a game where you say a lot of people are excited for it, and I would also say a lot of people were excited for Watch Dogs in June 2013, when there was a pre-rendered, beautiful-looking quote-unquote gameplay going on, and I feel like there is a similar vibe going on around this game where all the footage and images you see looks really nice, like too nice.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
There's no fucking way someone's making the new aesthetic of Resident Evil but an MMO game. But you can just fuck off with that.
Yeah.
There's no way that's being achieved right now by somebody.
Sorry, 234,000 followers.
I'm not 100% sure how like the follower system works and on Steam and stuff. Is there a chance that there's like a certain percentage bot element to that to like hype itself up, or is it more difficult for you to get like bot followers on a Steam release?
So you have to have a Steam account to be able to either follow or wishlist. So wishlist is adding it to your wishlist. That data is not public. Followers is basically you're following it so that if you go to your Steam news page, you'll get the updates from the game. And so any game that you own, you're automatically following. You can unfollow them if you don't want to see the updates. But usually followers are significantly higher than wish lists. Which is why there's kind of a sweet spot. And I think it's like 15-20% of followers typically become wish lists. But it's certainly possible that all it would take is creating a Steam account and following it, and that's it.
Right.
So
because I'm getting very heavy Abandoned vibes from this. That's the name of the game, right? Abandoned. That one.
Yeah.
Yep.
The blue bubble
from Bluehole.
Bluehole's the good one.
Blue box.
Blue box. That's it.
Yeah,
one's a circle, one's a square.
You're thinking Blue Point as the good one.
Yeah, that's right. There's a lot of blue, huh?
Yeah.
But yeah, this the day before has very similar vibes, right? Where it's this weird, like, kind of fake excuse kind of feeling, and everything just looks too good to be what it is. You know, like next thing you know, they're going to be like, oh yeah, and we're working with like Tetsuya Nomura on this or something. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm in.
Yeah,
me too.
Yeah, I'm in.
Yeah,
I'll wait 1,000 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like, I don't know why it reminds me of this, but this is a famous thing from Reddit for years ago of this lady that posted about her dragon game. Remember that? She was, I don't know if anybody's seen this. She was hyping up this thing on making this dragon thing. It was super detailed.
Oh, yeah.
She posts like a screenshot. It's like fucking the dumbest looking thing you've ever seen. Like an MS Paint dragon. It's like, here, this is the game. And like it seemed serious, like genuine. Anyway, I don't know why it reminded me of that. Obviously, this looks amazing if it is real, but it definitely is one of those too good to be true feel like kind of things.
Yeah, and I mean, even if it was set to come out in March, right? And like, if you believe them, if you take it on face value, right? If the only reason for the delay is, oh, the name doesn't work anymore, that kind of implies that the rest of the stuff is ready to go by March, right?
Sure.
We haven't seen any gameplay.
Well, there's some clips.
Well, yeah.
But it also like gives like, remember the first time they showed, so you brought up Watch Dogs. Remember the first time they showed The Division, and it's like, Jesus, that looks crazy cool. Or like at least graphically it looks neat.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like all
dynamic
stuff
weather
happening.
effects.
Yeah,
Well,
none
and
of
then
that was
remember
in
they
there.
hired like 3 of your best friends to be in the
Yeah.
E3 promo stuff
It's
to
such a
voice
stupid-
chat.
They do that stupid acting of like nobody fucking plays a game
I
like
hate
this.
that.
Yeah, but I remember thinking like, wow, they're doing like cool stuff, like bullets going through windshields, like it perfectly looks like that, like all this stuff that just a lot of crazy detail that wasn't there obviously when it came out. But
So
Right.
like the cop system in Cyberpunk.
Kind of, yeah.
well, lots of stuff with Cyberpunk.
Yeah. So I think isn't the new slated release date for the day before or release window like it's later this year? It's not like indefinite, right?
It's just 2023, and they've completely pulled the Steam page down, which is strange to me because typically a trademark dispute would not force that particular move. And this is probably, if we're being completely honest, because I do track games pretty closely that are like high up on my list. They have removed their Steam page like 6 times in the last year. So
Very
it's
usual behavior.
like I'll go to check and like be like, oh, let's see if there's any news updates, and it takes me right to the Steam homepage because they've pulled it down.
Wow.
And it's been random. Sometimes they've made an announcement, sometimes they haven't. This is one of the times where they made an announcement and then it was gone. So it's a little weird overall.
Yeah.
So you're saying I can't go follow it right now if I wanted to?
Correct. All the data in SteamDB is just what was there before, basically.
You can't add to that follower count, Auden. I'm sorry.
I was gonna.
Yeah.
I wonder when we will hear more about Abandoned.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking too, right? Because it's been a while since we saw that man walk down the hallway for 2 seconds.
You might say it's abandoned.
Why would I say that?
We saw that. It's got Elle Fanning in it or whatever. We saw the thing.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Oh, good old Abandoned. Well, let's shift focus and talk about games that do actually exist, like a surprise drop from last week that just came kind of literally out of nowhere-ish. I think there were some leaks before it came out, but for the most part, it was just like out of nowhere. Hi-Fi Rush, Xbox's latest and perhaps only decent game on the Xbox Series X.
In a while.
In a while.
Just a small indie game.
Yeah. It's just a little indie game. It's like Stardew Valley. No, it's this rhythm action game from Tango Gameworks, which I love that in their like trailer for it, they were like from the makers of The Evil Within, and in parentheses, seriously, because you know they're all about the horror and the atmosphere. Ghostwire Tokyo, Evil Within, and then you look at Hi-Fi Rush and you're like, these aren't the same people. Stretch, you've played about 2 chapters of it, 2 levels.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
I love it. It's so fucking great. It is so reminiscent of like classic 90s platformers to me, but also that like beat combat element. When you like get into a flow and start like picking that up, it especially gets like way faster once you get like the grapple ability and stuff as well. It just feels good, looks good. Robbie Damon does an amazing job on the VO performance of the main character, whose name I'm blanking on. Chai. Yeah. It's a blast. It's good fun.
Yeah, I find Chai very charming because he's like the quintessential doofus, like lovable doofus character, you know? I think my only problem with him is that you have the cat name 808, and I feel like Chai is also a very good cat name. So sometimes my brain is like, oh, it's the cat Chai, but no, it's 808, which is also a great name.
I saw that the cat's name is Bob.
Yeah, Bob.
Oh, not 808?
It's leet speak for Bob.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, that's dumb. I like 808 more because every time the cat like steps, it plays like an 808 kind of, like the drum, right? 808 drums.
That's
Oh,
that's more musical knowledge than I have. I just thought it was a
okay.
Bob the Cat with lead speak.
Um,
808
no,
drum.
yeah, 808 drums. They're like really, really well
Oh,
known. Right? Okay. So I also have been playing Hi-Fi Rush. I do enjoy it. I feel I like the beat mechanics. I think a little more than Metal Hellsinger. Honestly, I feel like Metal Hellsinger felt a little like it was good, but kind of if you didn't play on the beat, you couldn't play at all. Whereas at least with Hi-Fi Rush, there's never a point where you feel like you can't do what you want. It's just that when you're on the beat, you do it better, right? Which I like that it doesn't feel as punishing. It's only rewarding, right? And it kind of continuously so far has given me things that I felt like I wanted. Like in the first chapter, I was like, man, this is really fun. I wish like there was a way to close the gap faster. And then in the second chapter, like here's a grappling hook. You can use it to platform and to pull yourself to enemies. So I'm like, oh, this is perfect. This is great. Like, it's so good.
you end up doing like Kingdom Hearts kind of combos of just like finishing up a sweep and then grappling to someone else, and like you just kind of end up spending most of combat in the air somehow.
Mm,
Um, and that's just like super satisfying to just keep that combo going.
yeah. Yeah, I love that it came out of nowhere, right? Just the surprise big drop. Like I'm curious if any Games Press really knew about it either, at least or had a code, because like no reviews came out until like a day or two
No,
after.
definitely didn't do that. Yeah.
Yeah,
It
I
was
feel
a
like
true surprise drop. Like
yeah, for everyone.
zero marketing, just hey, it's out.
Yeah.
That was it.
And I mean, that's such a great thing about Game Pass. It's not like, oh, a game has come out. Do I want to pick it up? It's like the game is out in 2 hours. Go play it. It's like, fuck
Mhm.
yeah, I'll go do that. And then there's like, the $8 upgrade to the deluxe edition if you want like more costumes and shit. It's
Yeah.
just such a perfect, um, like the perfect set of circumstances to get a huge game release.
hmm And it's such a charming game too. Like when I talk about it to some of my other friends, I've been describing it as like this is a video game. It's as if Edgar Wright directed a video game. Is how this feels. The Scott Pilgrim guy,
Yeah,
Hot
yeah.
Fuzz, all that,
Yeah.
because it's so like frantic and like ADHD in a way, where it's just like quick cut, swipe, zoom, right? It's like all over and crazy. And Chai is just such a like hyperactive ball of energy that seeing everything through his lens, it just felt so Edgar Wright to me, which it sounds like stress that's resonating with you too.
Yeah, 100%. I did not put that pin on that part of the board, but I totally get that.
Yeah.
Love Edgar Wright.
hmm Yeah. Were you about to say a thing?
No, that makes me even more interested because Edgar Wright makes good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's got a charm to it that the writing, it's cheesy, but it works. Like I don't. So far, nothing has been surprising in terms of like storytelling. You can kind of predict what's going on so far, but it just has this nice little charm to it that it's fun, it's chill, and it's great that it's free asterisk
Yeah.
because Game Pass.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
And in
I'm
terms of
picking
like
up.
the format of the release, I would love to see, we've now seen Pentiment be a kind of smaller passion game that has just kind of been dropped, and not dropped as in like lack of support, but like dropped as in released. Um, and then the same now with Hi-Fi Rush. I really hope that we're going to be seeing more of these kinds of small
Yeah.
passion
I
games
think
showing
this
up.
would be the smart move for Xbox with Game Pass. PlayStation's got the really big budget stuff that they just fucking crush. And there's been a severe lack of these, AA, mid-sized, mid-tier games, that are like, I think if you don't have Game Pass, isn't Hi-Fi Rush like $30? Like,
Yeah.
so it's
I think,
not
yeah.
it's not a $60 game. It's a smaller game, but still excellent. Same with Pentiment. It's a smaller game. It's a great game, like you said. And both these are through Xbox. So I'm wondering if that's the play going forward. And if it is, I'm all for it because usually that's where you get the more interesting shit. Like nobody's making a massive Pentiment game that's supposed to compete with God of War or something.
Open world Pentiment, 500 hours.
It's
When you get like a unique AA
great.
title, and with the lack of marketing they did on this one too, that only gives the developer more money to experiment further.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, what's nice
it's
is
interesting.
Like, those big games always kind of get feature bloat at some point. It's like, oh, we got to have this and this and this. We got the checklist of shit that needs to be in this big game. Otherwise, people are going to be like, oh, we got you cheated us out of something or whatever. And these smaller games like Hi-Fi Rush or Pentiment, like, I don't fucking need that. Just make the game that should be made, and that's all you need.
Yeah, and I think that this game doesn't suffer from any feature creep in a way where it feels draining to us, the player. Yeah. Like, if this game were open world, I don't think I would be as glowingly positive about it. The fact that it's just contained, like, they're fairly long levels. Like, I think it took me like 50 minutes to get through the first level, kind of. Wow. Like at a chill pace, but it's still like fairly linear. The occasional like side path to get this upgrade, or like a little secret room behind some breakable stuff here, right? Like it's very Devil May Cry in its level design, right? Where it's easy to get to the end, where you're going, and you don't have to worry too much about like a side quest or something. At least so far. I mean, we're only 2 chapters in, right? Or 2 tracks in, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, like it looks like there's replayability as well. Like come back to an earlier level with more abilities, and you can open some more stuff up, which is for the people who want to collect and do everything, you can do it. If you don't care about that, then you can very clearly be like, yes, I can't go here. Oh well, and you just move on with life.
Yeah. And if you're a music nerd, I think there's going to be a lot you'll enjoy about the game, because everything just has this little touch of like playful music punness to it. Like there's when you jump up in the air and do a heavy attack, you smash down, and they call that a hammer on. Or there's like, or like your first special attack is called power chord. So cheesy, but yeah.
Did you know the name of the cat is a reference to drums?
Did you?
Yeah, of course I did.
I feel like you learned it in real time in the past 10 minutes.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I know that drums exist, and there are different kinds of them.
There are.
If you show me a drum like that would be used by like a rock band and like bongo drums, I'd be like, those are different.
Okay.
Tell you what, you'd look at the 808 and you would say, that's not a drum.
Probably, yeah. Well, Hi-Fi Rush, great game. If it's on Game Pass, if you have Game Pass, go check it out. I'd recommend. It kind of feels like a blast from the past, like a game that could have come out on a PS2 or PS3, much like Dead Space did 15 years ago. Dead Space.
Excellent segue. That was beautiful. That was amazing.
Dead Space, it came out again, guys. It came out again. And it kind of feels the same, but better.
We don't need new things anymore.
Yeah. If I remember right, I think, Stretch, you were really close to finishing Dead Space, right?
I'm on the last chapter. I was, as we were doing podcast prep and setup and deciding what we were going to talk about today, I was kicking the shit out of some necromorphs.
Oh, just kicking them. No guns anymore. Just stomping.
Well, I mean, 1-gun run.
Get them on the ground. I mean, you only need to do a 1-gun run because they give you the best fucking gun in the game first.
Yeah, plasma cutter.
It's like, it's not like you come in with like an assault rifle and then you get the thing that's specifically designed to hit the weak point. It's just like, well, yeah, if this thing like has a vertical, has a horizontal, and it will take off limbs, I don't know why I want a shotgun or a flamethrower. Let me just fucking do the thing.
Yeah. Though I will give a shout out to the Ripper, because it's not as effective as a plasma cutter, but boy is it fun just levitating a chainsaw, like a buzzsaw, far away from you. Just being oppressive with it. I want to go around the table real quick and just because it's a 15-year-old game, have people here played at least the original in the past 15 years? Is everyone
Nope.
here? Nope.
Yes,
Past 15.
many times.
You know, since it original came out, right?
Yeah.
Have you played it
Yeah,
before?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's been a lot of things recently that it's like 20th anniversary, and that just makes me want to die. So
Mhm.
I don't know what time is anymore.
Fair. But you played Dead Space before.
Oh yeah, all
Yeah.
three or the first three. So there's like a tertiary one, right? Or am I thinking of like
there
a
was-
comic?
Retribution or something?
Yeah, there was one for the Wii that was kind of like a mix of on-rail shooter and comic book that then I
Oh,
think
yeah.
got ported to the other consoles.
That one I have not
Um,
played.
Me neither.
The movies are good too.
This is one of few horror
Movie.
series that I've played.
Yeah, there was a Dead Space animated movie. It kind of has a similar art style to the old Men in Black TV show.
Huh.
Interesting.
But it is about like what happens when the marker first arrives on the USG Ishimura. So it's like when all of the shit goes down before Isaac shows up.
Right.
So like all
Got
of
it.
the, it's kind of, I mean, it's so reminiscent of the movie Alien, that they're like watching shit unfurl as they've brought something onto the ship. But really good movie. I'd recommend checking it out if you want a bit of a horror binge. I think it's free to watch on YouTube Movies.
Oh.
That's where
Well, I
I
guess I
last
know what I'm
watched
doing
it.
tonight.
I'll be watching
But-
The Last of Us tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Not that.
Fair.
Right. Fair.
Supposedly the
But-
best one. Everybody's hyping it up as the best one. Anyway,
Hey, I
That's
mean,
I'm
hey,
almost caught
season,
up on Vox Machina too. So
season 2's coming out too. That's exciting.
That's
Season
right.
2 confirmed. Yeah. Dead Space, I am enjoying it. I think it does feel like a blast from the past for me because Dead Space is a game. I think I played it through like 2 or 3 times, like in that first year it came out, like back in the day. But then I hadn't touched it in the past 14 years, so now I'm like replaying it, and I feel like how you remember things better than they actually looked.
Yeah.
I'm
Mhm.
feeling like this remake is delivering on my memories of the game, which I find fascinating because like I remember all of this, but it's kind of a weird uncanny valley, like Twilight Zone, like alt reality. Like I remember this, but do I remember it like this or not?
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that that's probably one of the best things that a remake can ever do is, and I said it in the video that I did with Chris talking about first impressions, but if a remake looks as good as my like rose tinted memories of it look, then I think that that's great. Like that's what I want.
Mhm. Yeah, but so you're pretty far into the game, and you're saying, Stretch, that for the most part it's pretty 1-to-1 in terms of like story and like the beats.
Yeah, the story is all there. With Isaac talking and being allowed to talk, it feels less like he's just getting kind of like told to do shit. And it's more like there's that discussion, and he's like, "Okay, well, I'll go and do this thing," as opposed to like, "Hey, Isaac, I'm gonna stay here safe in the bridge, but can you go through that other fucked up portion of the ship? I know you just went through a fucked up portion of the ship, but there's something else that you need to do in this other portion," and you just kind of
Right.
go and do it because you're the person playing the game.
You
Um,
need something to do.
Yeah. There have been like some fun little bits of extra story or background with like side quests and stuff. And there's some like new mechanics like the fuse boxes, which are pretty
Mm.
neat. There's a part early on where you have to decide between, do I want to power the doors, the elevator, or the lights? And you can only pick 2 of them. But from where you are, you need the elevator, and of course, to leave, you need the you need the
Right.
doors. So it's like, well, I guess I'm turning off the lights. Fuck.
Well, there's another one early on that I love too. That this was a choice where you need it's three things again. It's lights, oxygen, or like the door or something like the thing you need, and then you have to decide. Okay, do I want to see the things I'm killing or have a time limit before I have to regen my oxygen? Which is like that's an interesting choice
Mhm.
that I loved having. Yeah.
But aside from that, it's the same game that you would love, and for new Dead Space people who maybe weren't even alive 15 years ago when the game came
Mm.
out, um, a great way to hop on.
Yeah, if you're 14 years old, play Dead Space. That's our
I
recommendation.
played it when I was 14.
Yeah, I guess
That's against the rating.
I played it. Yeah, I guess I was like 13 when I played it. Yeah.
Oh no, I would have had to have been 15. Sorry,
Mm,
because it was MA 15 plus in Australia.
legally, you were 15.
Well,
You're safe, Stretch. You can admit to it.
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
the first place that I saw a Dead Space trailer, this was before the internet was as huge a thing, and like it's not just like anyone would put their trailers everywhere.
Yeah.
That I saw a trailer for it at Australia's crappy equivalent of like a Comic Con or an E3 called Supernova.
Mm,
And they had a big I wouldn't even call it a booth, it was a room. They built a big metal room in the center of the con floor. And they were checking IDs at the door because Australia is so strict about like video games stuff.
right.
So I had to have my ID checked, confirm that I was 15 to go into this darkly lit room with mannequin limbs hanging from like the ceiling and stuff to watch a trailer of Dead Space.
Mm. And now here you are again, 15 years later, playing it once more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
I'm not far enough to like really comment much on the story. But I do, like you said earlier, I like that Isaac talks. I do think that adds a nice layer of kind of depth to the story where it feels like he has more agency and he's like an actual character. Because that's one thing I liked about the second and third game, which, the third game is its own thing. But the fact that Isaac is a character instead of just a silent avatar for you to inhabit, I kind of like that more. But I also enjoy that so far I've noticed that you don't technically need the tram to get to the med bay. And I'm getting the sense that the map is going to be so open that you can backtrack whenever. And I've read in the reviews too, I think that there are like side quests where you have to backtrack to like complete them. And I'm liking that the Ishimura now kind of feels like a big kind of haunted house, basically. That's like, you can roam and go wherever you want, which is nice. It feels very different than like, because I remember the original game, it felt very like level by level, right? Kind of like Hi-Fi Rush, where like here's level 1, you completed it, now loading screen, or I guess elevator in the old days, right? And get to level 2 and so on.
Yeah, that there's no loading screens is one of their selling points, but they still have like the long-winded elevators and a long tram sequence, and it's like, okay, like sure, there's no loading screen, but it's not like there's no need for a loading screen.
Yeah, but they're building tension with that, right? Like I'm sure that with the power of the PS5 TM, it loads pretty quickly, I bet. But it's the tension, right, of the long elevator ride, and it's like, is this the one where the necromorph comes in? Because I know there's one elevator in the game where the necromorph jumps in. I don't remember which one it is. So every time I get in one, I'm like, yeah,
that's in chapter 6 or 7.
Okay,
you'll know it. It's a much larger. It's like a freight elevator,
right?
But it's very like, oh, the freight elevator has stopped halfway down. Give us a moment. We're fixing it so that it will keep going. And it's like, what's going to come out of the walls? Come on, let's get this on.
Right. I think there's also one save point or bench, I remember, where like right after you're done with it, a necromorph comes out behind you, and I don't remember which one that is either.
They do a really good job, not just like setting you up for jump scares all the time, but they'll do a whole bunch of like a necromorph will pop out all the way over on the end of the hallway, and it will loudly come at you. And what you don't realize is that one has quietly popped out behind you, so that by the time you're like stood still, shot off some limbs, you've now just got a knife in the back.
Yep.
I appreciate those moments. It's like, fuck shit.
Yeah. No, Dead Space, this remake is a pretty spot on one. I think it's delivering on all accounts for what you would like. It's kind of the new definitive way to play the game. Yeah. So yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's one thing that did sit weird with me though is that you have to log into your EA account at the beginning, or like they prompt you to. You can skip it, but it was just kind of a reminder of how EA is EA for me.
Yeah, the
I mean-
company known for making great single player games.
Well,
I'm saying that
15 years,
unironically.
15 years ago they did.
Yeah. I mean, they've been
Well,
putting them out
Star
lately.
Wars. Yeah, there's Jedi 2, right? Coming out in March. Yeah. But that's the Dead Space remake. If you've been excited for it, you probably already bought it. And so far it seems better than Callisto Protocol. So it's, it's
They won that
you
battle.
should think, yeah, pretty heartily. Okay, last game on our list. There've been a lot of games coming out, but let's talk about Forspoken, Square Enix's latest and greatest. From
They
Luminous.
paid us to review it.
They did,
According to
yeah.
TikTok.
We gave it an 8.0.
Yeah, Rut took the money though, did not give it to the reviewer.
Yeah, he pocketed it all himself to buy all the copies of Forspoken.
I think he actually put down a pre-order for Index 2.
Oh yeah, that's right. So
You
Otten,
better not announce that.
you and I have been playing Forspoken. How far are you into the game?
Not super far, several hours.
Okay.
Not a bunch.
Okay. Like what chapter do you remember?
I couldn't tell you. I took a trip in between it, and I can't remember what the last one.
Oh, right.
I haven't played in a couple days.
Gotcha. Well, how are you feeling about it so far? There's been a lot of buzz online.
I will say it. I don't think it deserves a lot of the hate it's getting. I'm not going to say it's a good game though. In the same breath, I'm not gonna say it quite deserves what it's getting, but whew, boy, it's got some good ideas. Doesn't really know what to do with them though.
Some glowing praise.
I don't know. Kind of right away. I think that whole opening thing is like, I think there's a good idea there, but it fucking sucks. You're in New York and the like stupid gang members. It's so hammy and it doesn't feel like it was trying to be. It's trying to be like, yeah, this is this kid's getting fucked up by this weird gang of people that and they don't explain why she's involved with them. We know she's trying to steal money to get out of town for some reason, and that's it. Also, she's a criminal and she happens to be black, and that seems like a bad move, but
Will, if I was interested in picking this up, will I have needed to have played the first 3 for this one to make sense?
Oh, now you're just for joking, Stretch.
Did you say that there is so much to do in the world?
There is so much to do in the world.
There actually is so much to do in this world.
There is too much to do in this world.
Yeah, there is so much.
Yeah, I am at the halfway point of the game, I think. Just it feels that way in terms of like storytelling, like the hero's journey kind of stuff. So I think it is remarkably similar to Final Fantasy 15 in really almost too many ways.
Yep.
And that's good and bad, because I did enjoy 15, but there are some parts where it felt like it was kind of,
boy, that open world, huh?
Yeah, and that's how this game feels too, because this is one of those where like if you mainline it, I could totally believe you finish it in 12 hours maybe.
I think that's what Dan said, our reviewer, is that he first did that because he was afraid he wouldn't finish it for time review, and he said he did it in 11 or 12 hours.
Yeah, and I'd believe that honestly, because if you just go point A to point B, you're good. But the thing is, there's like 50 plus things to do on the way from point A to B.
The map's huge.
Yeah, it's huge. Like there's wait, have you opened the map screen? Have you pressed the touchpad again after you open the map screen?
Was it? No, I mean, I've looked at the whole map, but does that open it all up?
That's where it zooms out to the whole map. And
yeah,
and
it's
that
like fucking huge.
I doubled back. I was like, oh my fucking God.
I guess what you run really fast. So like there's a lot of open space in between stuff. So it's not like, oh my God, this is so jam-packed. Like there's still a lot of shit.
Yeah, but it does feel too big.
It's too much.
It feels similar to 15, where 15 was a lot of huge open spaces, open roads.
Yeah. And you didn't get a lot of payoff for that, which sucks. Because there's not a lot of payoff that I've seen so far.
The banter.
Yeah. Boy,
the banter's okay.
Hop out and take a picture every once in a while.
Yeah.
You do that in this game. You do that in this game. You can take pictures.
Think, like, did they only make her come from the modern day so that they could justify her having a phone for photo mode?
Yes.
Is that the only reason? So far, that's all it feels like.
I guess they gave They gave Sora a smartphone for that purpose as well. So
Yeah, but no, but
it's a gummy phone. It's
he can
in
do whatever.
universe.
Yeah, it's Nomura. He can do whatever the fuck he wants. I don't care, and I'll just accept it. It's like that's just part of it. Forspoken hasn't earned this.
But
There's just so much weird shit in this. I don't know.
There is a lot to do, and I feel that there's a little bit of a disconnect in terms of like the reward that you get from going out to do the side thing versus just kind of playing it in other ways. So like, for example, there's, like an example, one of them is like, here's a bunch of ruins, and if you kill all the enemies there, you get a stat increase.
Yeah.
More often than not, the stat increase is like +1 to magic damage, which is like, okay, that's nice. Or I can go to my crafting bench and do +1 magic on my cape by imbuing it with a resource that's so abundant that I have over 100 of them. And I can kind of do that until I hit the cap. So like within a few seconds, I can get like +25 purple magic damage instead of the +1 from beating all the enemies in the ruin over there, So it doesn't feel like the reward is worth it for most of them. But then there's the occasional ones where if you go there, you get a new spell. And usually those spells are pretty useful. So it's worth doing that. But it's very hit or miss in terms of what's worth doing.
Yeah, I haven't done a ton of the open world stuff. But there's just a few things like when you get to that town, they're just so fucking weird. Like, yeah, like... Well, even before that, so there's like weird scene, like they'll have cut scenes and they'll just have random fade to blacks in them, and I was like, "Oh, the scene's up. Nope, it's not over. Oh, it's over. Nope, it's not." And it's really just one character talking and another character talking, and for some reason they just fade to black in between them. It's so fucking weird. And like at first, like, is that a mistake? Nope, they just kept doing it. So bizarre. Just there's so many weird little things.
They do that when you like feed the sheep too. There's a side quest where you feed a bunch of sheep, and you approach it, you press triangle, and then it fades to black, and then just some text in the middle pops up. You fed the sheep, and then it unfades to black.
That's yes.
It's just a
There's
little
weird
unfortunate.
stuff. So like another along those same lines in that initial town, there's like a minstrel guy does music, and he's like, I'm gonna play this song for you. Doesn't play it at all. You don't hear the song. And he's like playing up this song, he's talking about it, and then he comments on how great the song was, and it's like I didn't hear fucking anything. And I got for a second I was like, did I like skip it on accident, hit a button? Nope, I just didn't. They just didn't play it, and it's like, what the fuck is this? Why did this interaction exist?
That's so weird.
So bizarre.
And I think it's this weird thing with the cutscenes where I think the face capture is pretty good. Like the Frey, I think Ella Balinska is the actress's name. I couldn't
remember it. Yes, that sounds right.
Like it looks really good as her, but there's also this weird kind of feeling where it's like it looks good from one angle. Like there's something about the transition of the faces, like when they go from like happy to sad, or like different emotion showing where it feels very wooden and stiff, where it's like you're turning on a switch as opposed to like a natural, the face muscles move to the next emotion kind of a thing. That felt really off to me.
Yeah, it's a lot of just, I don't know, things are just slightly off a lot of times, or they're just not done well, or they're very obvious. Like the big point in the game where you find the cuff, and then you end up in Athia in the fantasy world. She's sitting up there all depressed because bad shit's happened, which is the funniest dumb fucking bad shit ever. That's so stupid. Like the reason they get her out of town is so fucking dumb. I can't. These stupid gang members. She's like gets away from them, and she goes home. She's like, "Oh, I got them. I can like escape tomorrow. I can finally leave town." And then she wakes up and her apartment's on fire. And they're like, "Wow, we fucking found you!" And that they have spray paint on her window, and that's it. It's like that's so fucking stupid. Anyway, so after that, she's all sad about that and trying to figure out what she's gonna do. And she's standing on this sign. And then sees a weird light and goes to investigate, and that's where she finds the bracelet. But you have to climb down this ladder, and it says it's the hotel, the Crossroads,
Mhm.
I'm like, Jesus Christ. Like, that's so. I'm
Do-
sure
do
a
you
lot of
think-
people didn't notice it.
Do you think that was a reference to something?
Yeah, and it's like, wow. Like, you couldn't at least try to make something that's more, I guess, symbolic crossroads. No, it's just the crossroads. And
Mhm.
it's just very obvious shit like that, I've noticed.
Yeah, I mean, it's very Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
Yeah, very.
But, well, yeah, they make sure you know that should be in your mind early, too.
Mhm.
Yeah, but
Here's the thing though, we haven't been saying too many positive things so far, but I am having fun with it. I am
I think
enjoying.
the combat's fun. It's like, I don't know, it's not the greatest thing, but it's a great, like, I don't know, it feels. I'm trying to think of the right way to describe it. Not filler's the wrong word, but it's just like, hey, you kind of just go through the motions and you see cool shit happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned this when I played the Forspoken demo in the pod, but it feels like the magic system in Final Fantasy 15, but expanded as its own gameplay system,
Yeah,
where you have a
I
lot
see
more
that.
fine control over everything, and like
Mhm.
you have more control over the dodges and the movement, which I am enjoying that. And
Yeah.
I think now that I have more time, like I think I'm like 10-ish hours in, and I've gotten a good grasp of the combat. It is a lot of fun. I think
Yeah.
there is something really interesting here.
Mhm.
I think the only knock I'd give it is that it does get a little kind of annoying / fatiguing to have to keep hitting the right trigger to do your attacks.
I'm already kind of getting annoyed at that. I'm like, Jesus Christ, man, I'm having to
Yeah.
hit this a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I understand like controller scheme wise, it makes sense
Mhm.
to do that, but I do kind of wish it was like the square button or something. And I guess I could just remap that if I wanted to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say the combat's fun. It looks cool. There's actually a lot. Like, you can do quite a bit. It's pretty expansive, more than you
Mhm.
think. I do enjoy that. Yeah. So I'm definitely gonna keep playing it. Like, all the other stuff, I'm like, oh my god, there's the stuff around it's not that great. It's kind of, well, like I said, it's like Final Fantasy 15. Like, combat was pretty fun, I would say. The rest of it kind of garbage, but
Yeah. So can we talk about the
yes, I was waiting to talk about. I'm assuming we're going to talk about the same thing.
what do you want to talk about?
The quips and the humor.
Oh, I want to talk about 808 again. So you want to talk about the clips and the humor, and I kind of want to get the other two voices in the room too, because I'm sure you've seen just generally the internet's vibe of
Yeah.
like. So I'm curious from like Rut and Stretch, your perspective as someone from the outside looking in. What do you assume or think about Forspoken's general attitude, humor, writing, vibe? What are you getting from Twitter?
From what I've seen on Twitter, it all looks generally non-offensive. I think that there are more games, like that there are a lot of games that do quippiness. Sometimes it lands, sometimes it doesn't. But I mean, for what I have been seeing of the reaction to Forspoken and how, even from an outside perspective, it looks like people have been blowing up a whole bunch of minor shit and making it seem like a much bigger deal. I just assume that it's going to be the same with the quippiness. Like, sure, it's not good, but the amount of fucking hate that it's been getting is mind blowing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's everything I've seen in terms of clips is not outside the realm of other games. Like it's not like it's unique in its weirdness or writing. There's plenty of games that have very similar writing. I think the difference is who the protagonist is more than anything.
Right.
I think that plays a big part in it, whether people want to admit it or not. But I mean, it seems very non-offensive, and it's a game. So
yeah. So on what are your thoughts on the general vibe of Forspoken?
I don't think it's very good. But it's not the worst thing in the world. I think one of the things that why so many people on the internet get so they talk so much shit about it is that Well, I think part of it is like the humor in its core is clever in some way, whether it's trying to surprise you or whatever it might be. So there's some level of like I'm not they're not nobody's saying this outright, but like I'm outsmarting you in a way, or I got from point A to point B quicker than you, or whatever it might be. It's kind of what humor is. And I think when people can see where it doesn't work, like everybody's like, I can say I'm smarter now. And they like to comment on that because it doesn't work. And there's a lot of times it doesn't work in this. I think it doesn't land pretty often. And they try a lot. But it's not like the worst thing in the world. Not a lot of groaning thing. There's stuff that I've laughed at that I thought was pretty good, pretty funny. But there is just a lot of like not sticking the landing stuff happening pretty frequently. I'd say.
So I think I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say I kind of really like it.
Do you?
Well, really is a strong word, but I do like it.
Yeah.
Because it feels like a reverse Marvel Midnight Suns. Or, what I said about that is that the Hunter feels like they were directed to act in a medieval like period piece, and everyone else is a quippy Marvel character. Forspoken is the exact opposite, where
True.
Frey
Nobody else is quipping.
Yeah, everyone else is boring ass medieval
and she like
fantasy.
says stuff, and she's like, "What the fuck is she saying?" And she's like, "Yeah, forget it."
And I really like it because inherently Alice in Wonderland, which I don't know if you know this, but a lot of this game is a reference to Alice in Wonderland. It's inherently a fish out of water story, right? And Frey feels like a fish out of water, but from the modern day. Like she swears a lot. She makes references to a lot of things that like a lot of people around our age would, and she's like 21, I think, in the game. And I love too that they're not afraid to like they still make the reference, and then Cuff's like, "Oh, is that another Earth joke?" And then she's like, "Yeah, you get it," or like, "Yeah, now you're getting it," right? Like that kind of thing. And it's like, okay, this is fun, and it's it feels like fish out of water in the modern day, as opposed to like an Alice in Wonderland when that was written, pop culture back then. It's very different from what we know nowadays, right?
Just a little.
So I think overall, like I agree, not every quip lands, not every joke lands, and there are times where you're gonna cringe or groan, and you're kind of like, oh, okay. But when it does land, it's charming, it's fun.
Yeah, I'd say I think the general feeling I've gotten so far is that like it's kind of what I said at the beginning is it's got a lot of good ideas, but they don't really execute them all that well. Every once in a while they'll do something like, oh, okay, that worked out, but it's like there's so many like pitfalls in between that are just such a shame.
Yeah,
it's like that. We know what to do, but we don't know how to do it. It's so it feels like sometimes,
right?
Because like I think Frey's character is fine, and I do like how she interacts with the world. But it's just some of it doesn't land, and more often than not. But I'm still there's still a lot of game left for me, so who knows?
Yeah. But yeah, overall I think I like Frey because she's so like kind of headstrong and stubborn, and she wants to do things her way. And it's kind of refreshing in that like as a protagonist, she like doesn't want to respond to the hero's call. Like she really doesn't want to have anything to do with this place, right?
She wants out.
Yeah. Yeah, and it like even where I'm at, she's still a lot like that. So it's just nice to see that like the little twist on the formula, as opposed to like I will respond to the hero's call and I will be the strong, powerful hero who saves the realm and yada yada. Right?
And they give her like a really good reason, like, hey, you're the one who can like survive this shit. Very, very Last of Us, actually.
Yes,
in a way.
She is Ellie.
She is in a way, because there's a weird disease magic going around and kills everybody, but she isn't affected by it for whatever reason. And everybody's like, oh shit, like you can like figure this out for us so we don't all die. And she's like, hey, I don't really want to do that. I'm like, how do I get out of here? Like,
yeah, just wants out.
I think she even says in the point, she's like, yeah, that's like, she says something to not like that's your problem or something. She's like, yeah, that's fine. I just want to leave. Like, it's your guys' shit, not mine.
Yeah, exactly. And her style's pretty good too. I do like the character style a lot. I don't like because she still has like the ripped jeans and the kicks, like the sneakers, and there's actually some voice lines like when you're just running around and Cuff's like, why do you still wear those? She's like, you don't understand, this is like peak humanity, this is like the best thing humanity's ever made. is kicks. And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
like this is fun. But you know, then she still has like the fantasy cloak on and
Yeah.
all. And even though you can get that I don't know if you got it, there's the PS5 one where it's like it's got the
No.
PlayStation symbols on it. It's really dumb looking.
I would be wearing it exclusively.
It looks so sci-fi because you know the
Like
PS5 looks like a router from Mars.
Yeah.
And so it just has that sci-fi aesthetic to it, even though this is a fantasy realm. It's so stupid.
It's like the Nintendo Switch T-shirt in Breath of the Wild.
Exactly. Yeah.
I am
But-
surprised having played it now that the reviews were as harsh as they were.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say they're unfair necessarily in a lot of the criticism I've seen, but it's a lot harsher than I would have guessed having played it now, which is weird.
Yeah, I agree.
I wonder how much those were impacted by discourse too. In
I'm
terms
sure
of
some-
reviewers being afraid of rating it too high. I mean, we saw the comments that we got for giving it an 8.
I don't know if it's afraid, but I think like if there's a pervasive thought of this is a bad thing or this is a bad aspect of it, even if they're not consciously thinking of it, it's going to affect what they think about it.
bias.
They
Yeah,
might go
yeah.
into it thinking, "Oh, I already know this part's bad," and just reinforce that. And it's not all bad at all.
Mhm.
I think it's perfectly fine. I would. I don't know if I'd stomach paying $70 for it for a lot of people, but
Right.
it's perfectly fine game.
Yeah. And I mean, hey, the magic parkour, I know we haven't talked
Yeah.
about it much. We're going to have a time limit here, but that magic parkour is really fun.
It's
It
pretty cool.
has that same feeling as like running around in Prototype, which is like the only good thing of that game. You know, like
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
Boy,
this is
that's
just
a pull. Like you speaking of talking about Dead Space Prototype now. Nobody's
Hey,
gonna
Dead
fucking
Space-
know about Prototype.
it brought me back. Brought me back
Yeah,
to 2008.
Prototype's old as hell.
Yeah. But Forspoken, I don't think it deserves all the hate it's getting. I
not
think,
at
you know,
all.
if you're on the fence and you're like, oh, this looks cool, but I'm afraid of what Twitter will think if I play it, fuck that. Just play it.
Yeah,
You know?
it's a fun game. It looks cool.
Yeah.
I say,
recommend
Something
it's
appeals to you,
good to
play
go
it.
through. Yeah.
Mhm. Exactly.
It's why I keep playing Elex.
I'm sorry.
I don't know, that's because of what happened to you when you were younger.
Oh no. Well, we'll leave that hanging. Thank you so much for listening to the TechRaptor podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, please feel free to leave us a review. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and share it with a friend if you want to convince them to also play Forspoken. And let us know in the comments down below of all the crazy big games that came out in the last week or so. We didn't even talk about Fire Emblem. Which one have you been playing? Which one have you been enjoying? And why have you been enjoying it? You can let us know in the comments on YouTube or on our site, techraptor.net, where you can read a bunch of news, features, reviews, etc. that come out every day of the week. But if you want more of this show, we will be back next week. We will see you then.